is Zach. There he is. Thanks, Zach. All right, Zach's going to demo, unless Ashley wants to demo the bench. Well, we're going to put Ashley on here. There we go. All right, so Ashley's actually got a really good bench. She's bench pressed 170 pounds. All right, that's her best. With a pause, She just recently, the other day, did 95 pounds for 18 reps, 15 reps, 14 reps. Is that right? Like 2 weeks ago? All pause. So she's a good bencher. Now, she's a great bencher because she's got some of the best technique I've ever seen on the bench. Much better than my own technique. No pressure. All right, so she can chew gum and run payroll at the same time. It's amazing. She does smell good. I know. All right, getting into it. Let's go. All right, so when you're getting set up in the bench, typically I like to have my nose area kind of looking through the bar. If you're too far back this way, you oftentimes find yourself running into the rack with the bar. And if you're too far this way, you're kind of using a lot of shoulder strength, trap strength, serratus strength to try to get into position. That's wasted energy. From there, she's going to unrack. Hand placement. Yeah, so for hand placement, I recommend whatever grip you're strongest with. Some people are stronger with a closer bench. Some are stronger with a wider grip. If you go wider, do you think you're going to touch higher or lower on your chest? Higher, yep. And if you go close grip, you're going to touch lower. The reason is you want your forearm to be perpendicular with the ground at the amortization phase or the bottom of the rep. Okay? So close grip, touching lower. Wider grip, touching higher. Main cue we want, forearm perpendicular with the ground. Ashley's got a pretty standard bench width. Another way to answer that question, you want a very precise answer. Most people's grip is best at 2x their clavicle length. So get the ruler out, measure your clavicle, double it, put that on a bar. That most likely will be your optimal bench grip. Not always, but typically. All right, here we go. That looks about 2x her clavicle. So from here, a couple cues I'm thinking about. Rip the bar apart or bend the bar, okay? So what I find is if someone's elbows are over flaring, I like the cue bend the bar. If their elbows come too far in like this at the bottom, I like the cue rip the bar. All right, so it kind of depends what you kind of lean towards. If you're an over rotator, rip. If you're over flare, bend. All right. Yeah. Notice here, she's got a nice arch. Cues she's thinking about, she has a very stacked, stable upper back. She's ripping that bar apart. All right. I see daylight under here. Her butt is on the bench. If you're training for maximal weight, the arch is nice because it decreases the range of motion that's necessary to lift the weight. It also makes it easier to put your shoulders into a nice, healthy position where we can keep the stimulus on her pecs. If you're training more for just muscle building, I generally recommend not too big of an arch because that way you can lift with more range of motion, get a greater stretch, and a greater stimulus, not needing as much load. So one of the issues about being too efficient on a movement is you're going to be too strong on it, and then you can't handle as much volume. So if your number one goal is muscle building, maybe less of an arch, less weight. All right, from here, she's going to lower the weight. I think everyone here wants to bench the most possible, so an arch is good. Notice at the bottom here, her forearms are pretty much perpendicular with the ground. All right, elbow positioning is even. She looks stable. Now on the way up, she's going to push through her legs. Yep, and you can press it. So if you notice there, it almost looks like she's doing a leg extension. So one cue you can do if you have a hard time getting the leg drive, have a buddy put their foot right in front of your foot, and on the way up, she's going to try to drive her toes into my foot. There we go. We're playing footsies on the bench press. And up, good. Another cue to think about on the bench with your lower body, because the lower body is really important. On the way down, I like to anticipate the leg drive. How do you do this? I'm squeezing my glutes. I'm squeezing my hamstrings. By squeezing here on the way down, it kind of makes it easier for me to then transfer that power into my quads on the way up. By pushing the feet this way into leg extension, it allows her to then push the bar at a slight diagonal angle going up over her upper chest. So she touches low, she presses high. Touch low, press high. That's going to be the most biomechanically advantageous or efficient way to press. We're able to maximize total force. There's a pretty cool physics study on this one power lifter. She's drug-free. She's in her 50s. What's her name?
Jen Thompson.
Have you guys heard of Jen Thompson? Okay, so she's like the biggest badass on the planet, I think. She's like 50-year-old mom, and she benches 335 pounds, and she weighs 130. Pause. Yeah, and she's natty. She gets drug tested all the time. Her husband's name is Jen Thompson's husband on Instagram. And you know what? Like, that's how it should be. You know what? Respect. All right? But she talks about that. One of the things that she did to get her bench to the next level was really mastering that arch, the timing. She didn't really add any more muscle over the years. She didn't add any more capacity that way. She just got better at the movement itself. And her arch is not crazy. It's not like some of those like exorcism arches that you see powerlifters do, where you're like, I don't know what that is anymore. If you can no longer tell me what the lift is, that should not be legal. That's just my like two thoughts on that. All right, so do a couple more real quick. Strong on rack, taking her time. Notice how she sets her shoulders. She's ripping that bar apart. She's squeezing her hamstrings and glutes as she descends. And then she's leg extending up. And then I recommend pausing your presses, or at least like kind of a pause at the bottom, because that helps you learn the timing of the leg drive. It also takes some of the tension off at the bottom. When people trampoline it, that's a lot of forces going through. You can't handle as much volume when you do that, and oftentimes you end up getting hurt. Once I started pausing my benches because of powerlifting, I was able to take my bench from like a really shaky, like 405, where my hips were coming up and it was touch and go and it wasn't great, to a controlled 440. And the biggest thing that I did was just implementing pauses. All right, if anyone wants to break off into groups, work up to like a somewhat hard